The Pittsburgh Maulers won their first game of the year. The Birmingham Stallions remain undefeated. New Orleans Breakers struggle against good teams. All that and more as we break down USFL Week 6. And Week 6 action kicks off Saturday, 1 o'clock, as we have the Tampa Bay Bandits, 3-2, taking on the Philadelphia Stars, who are 2-3. The Stars are 3-point underdogs in this game with a over-under of 39.5 points. Now, before we break this down, this is Burgundy Bets. We gamble on football and we cash tickets. Do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it lets me know to keep making these videos. Now, on to the pick here. We'll start with the Tampa Bay Bandits. Jordan Teamo, he was okay in the last game, 200 yards, 2 TDs. He did throw a beautiful 50-yard strike into the end zone. That was great. Juwan Washington was really one of their bigger inputs of offense here. He had 48 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Other than that, not much from this Tampa Bay rushing team last week. A couple interesting things here with this Tampa Bay defense. They have given up at least 20 points in 3 out of their 5 games this year. Okay, with an over-under of only 39.5 and playing a Philadelphia Stars team that is a over team. We'll get to them in a second. That might be where we're leaning in this game. As far as Philadelphia, they lose. A bit of a heartbreaker for them. They were in it, until the fourth quarter. Case Cook he's still doing okay, filling in for Byron Scott when Scott went down. 19 of 35, 215 yards. A terrible rushing game for Philadelphia. I mean, they only had 11 rushing attempts the entire game. I don't think you're going to win many games in this league like that unless you have one of those elite offense with many weapons on the outside. I think the over is where we're going to look in this game. Overs went 3-1 last week. Philadelphia's defense has given up at least 23 points per game this year, and they've given up the most points in the USFL with 125. You have that with Philadelphia giving up at least 23 in every game. The Bandits giving up 20. We know Philadelphia can score. They can, throw the ball. They're one of the teams that do have the most passing attempts in the league. I think the over 39.5 here hits. I mean, Philadelphia has gone over this 40 points in every game this year, and Philadelphia has gone over the total in every game this year except for their Week 1 game against the Breakers. A lean here for the side would be Philadelphia plus the points. Their rushing defense did look a lot better last week after giving up in weeks 3 and 4, 250 yards on the ground each game. I'm not sure Tampa Bay can even sustain a successful rushing game. A pick here would be Philadelphia plus the points, but I'm leaning over the 39.5. Let's go on to the next game. And your night game for Saturday will be a 7:30 kickoff as we have the Michigan Panthers 1-4 taking on the undefeated 5-0 Birmingham Stallions. Stallions are laying 6.5 points in this game with a over-under of 37.5. Now we'll start with the Panthers here. Shea Patterson, he threw for the most yards he has all year at 304 yards, but the team did just pick up Joshua Love, who played for the Pittsburgh Maulers and was released last week. Michigan picked him up. He could be inserted into the fold here in this game against Birmingham if Shea does continue to struggle. Michigan had to resort to a lot of trick plays to stay in their game last week. They had wide receiver screen passes that actually went for a touchdown. They had fake punt passes to extend drives. Their running game still continues to struggle. They have a 3-headed backfield, and not one of these guys are producing very well on the ground. Lance Noor Jr., we've talked about it before, one of the bright spots on this team, really their only true playmaker in my opinion. He catches 6 balls, 68 yards. Interesting here, this Michigan defense, a Jeff Fisher-led team that we expect to have a good defense and play good special teams, has given up 26 points now in back-to-back games. Kicking game continues to struggle for Michigan. Not much to love here from Michigan. And if you've been watching these videos of mine, you know I'm down on this Michigan team. On the other hand, we have the undefeated Stallions. They look great, and they have great wins beating higher-level football teams like the New Jersey Generals, like the New Orleans Breakers. I like this quarterback combo. I was a little bit hesitant on it with the Jamar Smith and Alex McGough, but McGough had a heck of a play in that last game. Evaded a rush, defended a sack, threw a strike into the end zone, had a great play there. He showed some athleticism. This continues to be Jamar Smith's team, however. Jamar Smith, 200 passing yards, a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown. It is really that upside with his feet that propels this team into different situations. The defense doesn't always know how to react when Jamar Smith is on the field. CJ Marble had a good game, 114 yards, and he got into the end zone. Marlon Williams was the standout wide receiver in the last game, 5 balls, 74 yards, and a touchdown. He's now had 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games, something to keep an eye on. The defense for the Stallions look good again here. They've had 3 sacks in every game except week 1 where they had 2 sacks. So, this front 7 still gets after the quarterback. Probably one of the main reasons why they are undefeated. I don't know if this game goes over. I'm not going to touch the total here. I don't really like laying points in the spring football league where anything can happen. But if you have to take a side here, you have to lay the 6.5 with Birmingham. They have beaten better teams than Michigan and covered this number against them. So the pick here would be Birmingham. Let's go on to the Sunday slate. Before we get into the Sunday slate, reminder, this is a football, gambling, and DFS show. If that's your type of thing, go ahead, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. We're going to go ahead and have our rankings for this year's fantasy football draft out shortly. And obviously, once the NFL hits, we're going to be going hard. We're going to be plays, player props, totals. We're all into that. If that's your thing, this is your channel. You're in the right place. Sunday action kicks off here at noon as we have the Pittsburgh Maulers. Now 1-4. They got their first win of the year last week. We'll get to that. Taking on the 3-2 New Orleans Breakers. Over under in this game, 36 points. Now, the Breakers are laying 8 points in this game. This line opened up -6, was immediately smashed. Again, it went up to 8 right away. We'll start with Pittsburgh here. Kyle Lauletta did start the game. We talked about how quarterback Josh Love was released from the team, now picked up by Michigan. So Lauletta starts the game. He has a drive. It's not bad. But then Vlad Lee comes in, backup quarterback, and he led this team to a win. We're probably going to see him start next week. He had 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, but when the game was on the line, and basically this guy led this team to the first win of the season. You got to think it's going to be Vlad's job to lose next week, but we'll have to see what happens there. As far as the running backs go, Grishak and London, they couldn't get anything going on. I thought London was a better running back than Grishak. I still think he has more burst and ability, but they couldn't get anything going on. Once again, Bailey Gaither Jr. hasn't played since week 2 when he put up 100 yards. Out week 3 and 4, comes back last week, 108 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, including that game winner. Pittsburgh's defense not very good, averaging, giving up 22 points per game. As far as New Orleans, they hurt me last week. I really like this New Orleans team. I still think they're good. I do think Kyle Slaughter is just playing through so many injuries right now. He was 15 of 36, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns, and it was arguably his worst performance since week 1 against the Philadelphia Stars. Their rushing game was weak against New Jersey. They couldn't get anything going on. Johnny Dixon and Jonathan Adams did both catch touchdowns. Obviously, this Breakers team still has, in my opinion, these best wide receivers and weapons on the outside. The defense, they're starting to fall off. They're not as strong as they were in the beginning of the year. They've now given up 21 points over their last 3 games, average 21 points given up over their last 3 games, and they've only had 1 sack. They're not applying pressure. They're not getting much going on. As far as a pick in this game, I'm not taking the Maulers. Probably just stay away from this game, but if you do have to have some action on it, I guess you could lay the 8 with New Orleans. Maybe this is an under spot here. Let's see what Vlad looks like if he will be starting for Pittsburgh. Take that information, store it, and then use it for Week 7 when those lines drop. Let's get on to Sunday night. And the last game on the USFL Week 6 slate will be Sunday at 4 o'clock as we have the Houston Gamblers, 1-4, taking on the New Jersey Generals, 4-1. Gamblers are getting 7 points in this game with the over-under of 38.5 points. Now we'll start with Houston. Quarterback Clayton Thorson, he was okay. He only completed 11 passes, 165 yards, threw a touchdown, also ran a touchdown in. Mark Thompson, one of the best running backs in this league, continues to look good. He had 80 yards, still shows a lot of burst, a lot of fire through Week 5 heading into Week 6. He should be good for the stretch here. Wide receiver Isaiah Zuber, another good day, 3 balls, 72 yards, a touchdown. Isaiah Zuber has now caught a touchdown in every single game except 1 this year. The defense is still getting pressure. I mean, they've had at least 2 sacks in the last 3 games, but they've given up the second most points in the league so far through 5 weeks at 116, trailing only the Philadelphia Stars, who have given up 125. As we look at the new general Jersey side of things, they're still implementing this 2-quarterback system that they have all year. Alex Perez, he was decent, 11 of 14, 102 yards. I think this team goes as far as DeAndre Johnson does, though. His threat of the mobility on the feet with that 4.3 speed and the arm is, what really sets apart this team from other teams in the league. DeAndre Johnson had 213 passing yards, and he ran in 2 touchdowns. Darius Victor had a nice day on the ground. He toted the ball 17 times, 95 yards, found his way into the end zone as well. And Kevontae Turpin led the team in receiving for the first time all year. 5 balls, 106 yards. The Generals have now won 4 straight games, and they haven't allowed more than 17 points since week 1. They have given up the lowest amount of points this year at 80, so they have the number 1 defense in points allowed throughout the first 5 weeks, and I'd say probably the most dynamic quarterback not best, dynamic quarterback on the roster here. The pick here is New Jersey. You know, their only loss this year came in week 1 against the undefeated Stallions. They only lost that game by 4 points, and Birmingham had to go ahead and hit a game-winning touchdown with like no time left to win that game. New Jersey was up, and New Jersey is a very good football team. Your pick here is the New Jersey Generals. As far as the total here, we're seeing a little bit of correction here in the market. You know, last week totals went 3-1 to the over. They were so low. We've seen totals at 33 points, 34, 35. A bit of an adjustment here in the market, as now most of these totals are floating in between that 36 to 39.5 point mark. This game I could see going over. It's just that defense in New Jersey. I mean, only giving up 80 points through the first couple weeks. Very impressive. And I like the Generals here. There you go. That's week 6 USFL action. Your picks, your plays. All my official plays are posted on Twitter. Went 2-1 last week. Breakers got us. Once again, I'm going to have those fantasy rankings out. And once the NFL starts up, we're going to be smashing player props, lines, totals. We're going to go through, the NFL released their win totals, over unders. We're going to have a video out on that. If you gamble football, if you like anything football related, you're in the right spot. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Give me a reason to keep doing this. I love y'all. That's USFL Week 6. Let's cash some tickets and let's get it.